Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave. We'll touch on the New Orleans Pelicans. Great panel, as always, tonight. Award-winning journalist Les East from Crest City Sports and so much more. David Grubb, my cohort over at Sports 1280 and CrestCitySports.com. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. As always, thanks for being with us. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are involved in.
Thanks, Eric. As you mentioned, writing for CrescentCitySports.com, writing a bit for The Advocate right now. We're running all our high school football district previews and covering LSU for SaturdayDownSouth.com. And I did want to plant a seed because I've been working all summer on a really lengthy story on the end, hopefully short-term end, but at least temporary end of professional baseball in New Orleans.
Right.
And the Baby Cakes last game will be in Oklahoma City on Labor Day, so the story will post on CrescentCitySports.com probably late in the day on Labor Day. And it's going to get lost because everyone is rightfully excited about the Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. And I just think it requires some sort of thoughtful reflection, and hopefully I don't screw it up.
Oh, I think it'll be fine. After all, he's an award-winning journalist. Dave, welcome back. You got a lot of stuff going on right now. I don't know how many hours a day are you up now? 24? Do you sleep at all?
About 20. I'm working a lot. Third week of Hard in the Paint with David Grubb on Sports 1280. We're having a lot of fun over there. I think the show is growing and just getting better each week. And, of course, writing for Crescent City Sports, working with the Bird Rights as well. And I've been doing a lot of podcasting lately as folks get ready for all the seasons, a lot of those calls. So it's been an exciting time of year, and I'm glad for it.
Of course, Big Three's coming to town.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah, we'll be doing the radio broadcast of the Big Three on Sunday, the playoffs at the Smoothie King Center at noon. So Dave DeCorbier and I will be handling those duties. I'll be doing play-by-play. He'll be doing color, and a lot of Louisiana connections at those games. And, of course, it's 3-on-3, and it's a perfect time. Saints play on Saturday, so Sunday is there.
Oh, and it's an exciting league, too. Anybody that's had a chance to sit down and watch it, it really is exciting. It's kind of funny to watch all these old pros, and we do mean old pros coming out, and some guys still got game, man.
Yes, I mean, Joe Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, still got game.
Really good out there. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who we love, has been great at 50 years old. Yeah. And I mean, and then you have the great coaches as well. Charles Oakley, Lisa Leslie. Yeah. And it's just a great production, and it's entertaining every week, and I'm excited to do it.
Absolutely. I want to go back to the end of baseball here in New Orleans, because I'm one that really thinks that the market is not there anymore for minor league baseball here in New Orleans. Pelicans, Saints, unfortunately what has happened with, again, the Zephyr/Baby Cakes. I don't think there's going to be money in the budget to build a new stadium, maybe on the riverfront, like a lot of people would like to see, to maybe ignite enthusiasm among the baseball fans that are still here. If you're talking about a WLAE team, you're talking about wrestling one of those teams from a community where that's the team. I mean, literally, they are going to be there night after night, day after day, supporting the team, and they're not an afterthought like they are here in New Orleans, where again you got everything else to do, and then well, maybe I'll take the kids to go see some minor league baseball. And whether it was marketed correctly here or not, it's kind of become a forgotten sport in New Orleans. You've been around the Zephyrs since they came to New Orleans. What are your thoughts there?
Well, this is why the story I'm writing is going to be so long. And I'm not going to dwell a lot on what could have been done or even what's going to happen next, just kind of like the legacy, because the community is better off for them having been here.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they're no longer viable, and as far as the future, they're going to have to put millions of dollars into the stadium. I believe there's $4 million in the current budget to get started on that. That's probably not enough, but that would be a starting point. Maybe WLAE in a couple of years, possibly, but what you have to have before anything else is what you had initially back in the early to mid-90s, which is a group of owners and local politicians and business leaders who have the commitment and the cooperation to make this happen.
Yes.
And it happened back then, and it was a huge success early on. That cooperation has not been there to save this franchise. True. If it's not there to bring another one in, then we're not going to get another one, and if we do, it's not going to be successful. There has to be that cooperation from all those facets.
Yeah. And I think you have to have local ownership.
That helps a lot.
It really does. You
Yeah.
know, and that's something that we haven't had here in a while. I've talked about that again, retrofitting that stadium. We need another high school stadium desperately for football. Again, soccer. You could talk about, again, that could be a venue where they could do concerts, but they can retrofit that stadium. There's been a lot of talk to maybe the Saints buy the stadium, and again, that becomes part of their plant where again, they're practicing and having their practices in a renovated Zephyr field instead of again at their own facility. What's your thoughts, David? Because look, for a long time, Zephyrs were a mainstay here. I mean, my kids grew up on Zephyr baseball. We went out there, saw fireworks. Again, there was a time when they were going for the PCL championship. They were PCL champions at one time. They won the World Series. I can remember sitting in my house in Araby back then, watching that game, being excited about it. But over the years, it just kind of dwindled again where they are in terms of the hierarchy of sports here in New Orleans.
I think what you said early on was correct. You don't see a lot of AAA teams in major cities because most of those cities have other professional teams.
Yes.
We got the Zephyrs from Denver when they got the Colorado Rockies. They didn't have baseball before. And once they got Major League Baseball, obviously it became irrelevant to have a minor league team. And like I said, the start was great. But once the Pelicans, then Hornets came on board, now you're a two major league town. And then your baseball center is in Baton Rouge. So as the Tulane program fell off for a while, the UNO program fell off for a while, you had this dispersal of kids. I think the local feeder programs were not as strong. That baseball interest, in a lot of ways, it couldn't be maintained. And I think location also has something to do with it too. To get people to drive out to Airline Highway and to go to that stadium, it's hard to do. I mean, if you come out of work at 5 o'clock and you live in the North Shore, you're not going to drive out that way. And if you're on the West Bank, you're not coming out that way. So I think the location made it difficult as well. Most minor league stadiums that you see now, whether it's in Birmingham or in Mobile, you look at those places, they're closer to the center of cities. And this is it's been a difficult spot to have a team.
And I agree with you, Les. There's got to be a commitment, okay? There's got to be a commitment from the government to be able to, again, make sure you have a first-class stadium. If you go to those other double league cities, they all have new stadiums. They all have state-of-the-art stadiums. And just even as a AA or a AAA stadium, Zephyr Field has fallen behind, okay, way behind. And with not a lot of, the effort is now to put money in the dome, to put money in the arena next. And where is the baseball stadium in terms of the future? That's why, in my opinion, they will be retrofitted because there is a need in this town for another high school football stadium, and that's where I think that direction they'll go. They're not going to tear it down. I just think they'll retrofit it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they could find a way to upgrade the stadium and make it more football friendly than it is, and upgrade it also for baseball, and somehow and allow them to coexist, that would be ideal. But again, there has to be the commitment to find the dollars to do that.
Agreed.
There hasn't been that thus far. And just real quickly, Dave brought up a good point about the location. There are so many ironies in this story, and that's one of those, is that the location was one of the keys to the success in 97, 98, and for a few years after that, because the suburbs embraced it, saying we don't have to go into New Orleans. It's safe, it's clean, it's easy to get to. And then the novelty sort of wears off, and people from other parts of the city don't really want to make that trek over there. So when your fan base starts to dwindle a little bit because the novelty has worn off for them, there weren't other people to draw from to replace those people. And then, of course, I've had different people weigh in differently on this, but I have no doubt that the arrival of the NBA from a sponsorship standpoint, if nothing else, made a big difference. Even though they don't necessarily cater to the same people and the seasons don't overlap a whole lot. The sponsorships, if you remember the full court press that was put on to get the Hornets here, it required a tremendous commitment from sponsors and season ticket holders and suite holders. And a lot of those people had to leave or turn down the baseball team to get the basketball team.
And then you add the fact that in a post-Katrina New Orleans, the move toward more people living downtown, people that once lived in the suburbs now living in the warehouse district, moving into downtown New Orleans. Again, then you're talking about people getting back in their cars and moving out. Before that, the move to the North Shore, where we saw a lot of people moving to the North Shore. No, I thought it was a perfect storm for the franchise when they first came to New Orleans, and of course, again, also having an affiliate that a lot of people can relate to. That Houston affiliation was fantastic for this team because a lot of people pulled for the Houston Astros. When the St. Louis Cardinals was the affiliate, when way back when, there was a big affinity for St. Louis because of KMOX. A lot of people were Cardinal fans.
And another thing that I'll touch on in the story is think about the timing. The Astros were huge. The location was huge. 97, 98, 99. What does that coincide with? Mike Ditka. And Tom Benson threatening to move at every turn.
Great point.
The Saints were shooting themselves in the foot left and right. The Zephyrs set themselves up as the alternative to the Saints, and there was no NBA. Then the NBA comes, the Saints get their act together, and it was a perfect storm, like you said in the beginning, and then gradually, virtually all of those things turned 180 degrees, and the circumstances weren't as good.
It's unfortunate, but again, just a changing of the times. We'll see what happens down the stretch here. Speaking of a changing of the times, I'm amazed, guys. I am absolutely amazed. There is a backup quarterback controversy in New Orleans right now. Teddy Bridgewater plays well in the first game, not so much in the second game. Taysom Hill, I got to be honest with you, you're seeing him evolving as a quarterback. Much better this year than he was last year. Mechanics, accuracy, I'll give him a tremendous amount of credit, even though, again, he is playing against guys that will be selling insurance in a couple of weeks. But nevertheless, there are actually individuals out there that believe Teddy Bridgewater needs to be cut and Taysom Hill is going to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees. I'm not on that train. Les?
Taysom Hill against the Chargers looked by far the best he has looked in 2 years with the Saints. But he's still who he is. He's a work in progress. He's a 28-year-old work in progress. It's kind of late for a quarterback to evolve. But, everyone should be happy with the Saints quarterback situation. You have a first ballot Hall of Famer as your starter. You have a guy who's had success, gone to the Pro Bowl as a starter as your number 2 guy. You have another 3 guy who's an intriguing project, maybe will be something down the road. In the meantime, he can come in, give the defense a change of pace against Drew Brees, and he can help you in like 5 different positions on special teams and on offense. So they have the collection of those 3 guys complement one another so well, and it's unique in the NFL. Take it for what it is and enjoy it. Don't try and turn Taysom Hill into Steve Young. And I don't know what Sean Payton was thinking. I got to believe that the network guys kind of ran with something that was a throwaway comment and made more out of it than what it was.
Right.
But Peyton had a chance to kind of douse it on Monday,
But
and he
did
didn't
not.
really do it. So,
No.
you know, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why he's saying that. But Taysom Hill's not Steve Young. Let's not try and make him Steve Young. Appreciate the unique, good quarterback situation the Saints have.
And people forget Teddy Bridgewater won, 10 games, went to the playoffs, was voted to the Pro Bowl. Again, all that has seemed like it's forgotten.
Yeah, I think that people forget that Teddy, his last year in Minnesota, he was, I think, second in the NFL in accuracy. He was right behind Breeze that year. So he does a lot of the things. If Breeze were to miss a game or two, you don't have to modify the offense much for Teddy Bridgewater. He makes good reads. He stands in the pocket. Now, he's done that a little too long in both of these games.
No doubt.
But he will stand tall in the pocket. He's not afraid to take a hit. And he can throw a strike. We saw it in the first game. He was throwing some very good balls. A couple of them just didn't get caught. He probably would have had a much better game against the Vikings if a couple more passes get caught. He was ill. He just didn't play well. All those things come together and it happens. But the same folks who will say the preseason means nothing are now saying, let's make a judgment on Taysom Hill after playing against the backups. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Again, he has not, you're not going to take anything away from him. His work ethic, the way he got here, everything he's fought through to get to be in this position at his age is amazing. It's a great story.
Yes.
Take nothing off the table.
And he's getting better. I mean,
Yes,
there's no doubt you
clearly.
can see he is clearly getting better.
But you don't put a potential starting quarterback on special teams.
Right.
You don't let him take those hits as a
You don't
running
put
back.
Steve
or
Young
as a
on
wide-
special teams.
Exactly. That never happened.
Right.
Okay. And it's just he's got so much to learn, and that can only be learned by taking in-game reps, and he's just not going to get those over the next year or so.
Right.
So, I mean, you're talking about a project, a guy who's going to take multiple years, and that's into his 30s. So when people talk about the eventual replacement for Drew Brees, it's quite possible that neither of these guys is the replacement for Drew Brees, that it's going to be somebody who's drafted
Right.
or traded to the Saints in a couple of years.
No, I'm with you. I made the comment, and I've been that kid, that individual could be a senior in high school, based on most college players play 3 years. You hope Breeze will play at least a couple more seasons, but we have no idea what's going on there. Right now, it's Teddy Bridgewater. Whether he's here or not next year is still up in the air as well. Look, he could get a more lucrative contract from somewhere else and ultimately not want to stay here. I think, and I've said this all along, I think people have to slow down on trying to push the greatest quarterback, the greatest player in Saints history out the door and saying he's out of here. I say stay as long as you'd like, as long as you're playing at a high level. Now, if the bottom drops out on this year, he's going to be the first to want to walk out the door because he's not going to do that to his legacy or the team. But as long as he's playing at a high level, I mean, he's still would still be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, the players picked him as the second best player in the league.
Come on.
So, I mean, in their estimation, and the respect among your peers is very important, especially among quarterbacks.
Yes.
Because players really will cut a quarterback loose in an instant. So, I mean, like you said, I think if Breeze is able to play and the numbers work for everybody over the next couple of years, and we've seen Tom Brady scale his overall salary back for higher guarantees.
Yes.
If Breeze is willing to do that, then yes, he'll probably get to play until he decides he doesn't want to.
Going to be interesting this week on how they utilize Breeze because we know that the Jets have really pulled all-out blitzes on Matt Ryan and the Falcons the other night. Breeze is not afraid of a blitz, and I'm sure if the first team is in there, they'll be ready for that. It'll be interesting to see ultimately how long he's going to go, if at all. What do you guys think is going to happen then with Breeze this week? Do you think he'll play against the Jets?
I think he will, but as we've seen over the years, as Drew has gotten older, his reps in preseason games have gotten fewer, and understandably so. It wouldn't shock me if he went through the whole preseason without playing a snap. I don't think that's the most likely scenario, but I could see them doing that. If he's going to play, it's going to be Saturday night, and I think it would probably be about 2 or 3 series, just so he can get some rhythm, getting game action with Eric McCoy, who's going to be his new center, throw a couple of passes to Jared Cook under game conditions, get working together again with Michael Thomas, just kind of get back in the groove of a game situation before he has to go up against a really good Houston defense to start the season. So my guess is that he plays 2 or 3 series until he and Peyton are both comfortable that he's done enough, and then they get him out of there probably in the second quarter.
Dave?
Yeah, I think the big test is probably with those secondary receivers to see if one of them with Breeze maybe functions a little bit differently, because outside of that top 2 of Ginn and Mike Thomas, everybody else is in flux.
Yes.
So I think one of those they'd like to see catch some balls from Breeze during live action. But again, I agree that if he plays more than 2 series, I'd be surprised.
Well, let's stay with the wide receivers, because that is going to be an interesting cut, because they got some players that are developmental, that may have an opportunity to hook on with other teams. I think it's going to be tough to be able to sneak some of these guys onto a practice squad. What do you think happens there?
I mean, you would have thought that Traquan Smith was locked in at the beginning of camp. I don't know if that's the case anymore. Same with Kirkwood. I don't know if he's a lock. Emmanuel Butler has played in 1 preseason game, didn't make any catches, had a drop. So nobody has really separated themselves from the pack and sees that position, at least as even the 3rd receiver, let alone the 4th or 5th. I think Butler, because of his size, is still very intriguing. I think some of the other guys behind there are more likely to probably end up on practice squad, but it comes down to me to Butler, Traquan Smith, and Kirkwood. I think those are the 3.
I think Simi Cobbs is in the mix there. I really do. I think Simi Cobbs has a real chance to make the team. I think Traquan Smith makes the team, not just because he was a draft pick, but again, he showed he can catch the football, even though he hit that wall. But more importantly, he is a dynamite blocker, and you got to be able to block in this offense. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen with Kirkwood. I mean, it's hard to make the team if ultimately you are constantly injured, whether they put him on short-term injury reserve or not, and then how that will open up a spot. And then you got Cyril Grayson, again, a guy that obviously looks like he's got practice squad written all over him, but do you chance maybe putting him out there for another team to pick him up? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we're in the same place we were in 13, 14 months ago, going into last training camp. They kept bringing in all those veteran receivers because they weren't sold on Traquan Smith as a rookie. Turned out he was, had a few moments, but was a rookie. And he still looks like an inconsistent guy. So I think one guy we're overlooking, Austin Carr, I think has probably solidified his position more than anybody else during training camp and the preseason. I don't think he's a lock, but I think they like him. This is his 3rd year with the team, 2nd full season, counting an off season. He's very smart. He's very precise in his patterns. He can run in the slot. He can be outside. He can play on special teams. He can field punts in a pinch, even though it probably won't be a primary responsibility. So I think he's very much in the mix. I think Traquan's in the mix. Kirkwood is in limbo because of the injury. Butler, that drop was so bad on Sunday, but that's only one play. I think they're looking at the body of work. I think they like what they've seen. I think he's right in the mix if he can.
And y'all been impressed with him during training camp. You've had a chance to see him at the practices. He has been, again, one of the better players at the wide receiving corps in practice, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if he's had the impact that Traquan had last year, but it is similar to that. He is a big target. He's gone up, made catches in the air. I mean, he looks the part. And he's a big guy. Peyton and Breeze both like big receivers. So he's very much in the mix. Cyril Grayson, if Ted Ginn were washed up, I could see Cyril Grayson being the deep threat to replace him. I don't think Ted Ginn's to that point yet. So that's why I think Grayson has a hard time making the opening day roster. But, we still have 2 preseason games. And the special teams are going to come into play with the receivers. So there's a lot to be decided. But I would say that I think Austin Carr has strengthened his position.
Yeah. I like the fact that Jets are going to blitz this week because I think it puts a lot of pressure on Eric McCoy. And I think you need to see him having to pick up blitzes, having to do this with, again, with a lot of checks and things that are going to be happening very, very quickly in front of him. I'm going to be interested to see how he handles this on Saturday night.
And he's had it easy, I mean, relatively speaking.
Right.
You play your first game in the Superdome, crowd loves you, you don't have any worries. You go to Los Angeles, there's not a lot of passion for the Chargers.
Sure.
And that crowd was there were a lot of Saints fans in that crowd. So he had it easy. Now you go to New York, it's going to be outdoors, You know, you don't know what the conditions are.
Right.
You never know in
Sure,
New York,
of course.
in New Jersey, and then it's a crowd that hates everyone. So, I mean, it's a hostile environment for him to go into. It's going to be a little bit harder to hear the snap counts. He's going to have to make adjustments, like you said, with those blitzers coming in. That whole line is going to have to work in concert because if Breeze does play 2 or 3 series, you better not let him get touched. And then, of course, if Teddy Bridgewater, who is not a scrambler either, better not let him get touched. Taysom can avoid that a little bit, but you know, so I think this is a real test for that entire line. But yes, McCoy is going to have to be really good and sharp at making his calls and adjustments at that line.
And he's done well in practice, right?
Yeah, he's done well, and you can see what the coaches think of him because, you know, Cameron Tom took the first team reps at the start of training camp, and McCoy had not had a great offseason program. It's hard for a rookie offensive lineman to do so. But you can see quickly he gained their confidence. He's been running with the first team for a couple of weeks now. And they've left him in games beyond the other starters so he can get more game reps. So they clearly are grooming him to be the starting center on opening night, and I think he has justified that confidence to a large degree. He's had, you know, some hiccups like any rookie would and probably will during the season, but yeah, I think he's had a good camp, and I think he's going to be the starter, but I think that it's good that they have Cameron Tom and Nick Easton and Will Clapp, and they have some other options if something happens where they have to fall back on.
That's where I want to go next too, Les, because I think that's a tough cut. I think it's tough to cut a guy like Tom, Clapp, or Easton, even though, again, you have a need at the tackle position. I think it's interesting to see what happens. If you cut any one of those guys, they're on another team, and they're going to either be starting or playing a lot. And again, you don't let good football players on the offensive line go. So I'm going to be interested to see, again, with this last cut, what they do. I kind of think that the tackle that's going to back up with Armstead and Ramczyk is not even on the squad right now. I mean, I think he's going to be a player they're either going to trade for or they're going to pick up off waivers.
I agree with that. In fact, if the third tackle were on the roster, I think it would have been Chris Clark. And he had the injury the other day. We haven't heard officially, but it looked pretty bad.
Yes.
So assuming he's out of the mix, I don't think the third tackle is on the roster. Michael Ola had the first crack, I think, at proving he could be that swing guy between guard and tackle. Doesn't look like they've been impressed with him. So I think that is someone who's going to have to be brought in on the final cut or with a trade. If they carry 9 linemen, which would not be surprising, then I think they can keep those 3 interior guys and have one other guy as the backup tackle, preferably another swing guy. So I can see them keeping Tom, Clapp, and Easton as the backups on the interior, and then focusing their attention on finding who that third tackle is going to be.
And if they have to, moving Pete outside and then letting one of those other guys fill in at guard if necessary. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd rather them not have to move Pete outside.
I agree with you.
I mean, I think mentally it's a difficult switch for him whenever he's having.
And you have a rookie McCoy who's going to have used to having him next to.
So I just think that, I think they need to look externally and find a veteran presence that they know that they can plug in and at whatever level count on a certain amount of production.
Yeah.
Whether it's you're not going to get a Pro Bowler at this point, but you're looking for somebody who's going to be steady, who can hold your line together and keep this young group that there are some youngsters on there. That's what you want as a veteran presence, and they just don't have that at the tackle position. It was devastating for a kid like Chris Clark. I mean, he's 10 years in the league. Right. You come to your hometown team and you get hurt in your first game, and that might be his career.
Right.
It might be his career. And that would have been the best case scenario, but I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, award-winning journalist Les East of CrestCitySports.com, David Grubb of Sports 1280 and CrestCitySports.com are our guests. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about the Saints. Then we're going to jump in LSU, Tulane, and Pelicans. All that coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, David Grubb of Sports 1280 and CrestLeeSports.com and award-winning journalist Les East of CrestLeeSports.com and so much more joins us on tonight's program. Guys, let's talk a little bit about the defensive end position, and that is the maturation process of Marcus Davenport. First, what we're seeing out of Trey Hendrickson right now. Les, I'll take you first.
Well, I think it's clear that the coaches want to take a good long look at Trey Hendrickson. He's gotten a lot of playing time these first two games with Cam Jordan not playing. He's been the biggest beneficiary of those opportunities. He's been pretty active out there. He's looked pretty good. I think he's helped his stock. I think he had an uphill battle coming into training camp to make the roster. I think he's probably improved his chances, but there's a lot of defensive linemen on this team, some guys who can go inside and outside. So I think he's still on the bubble, so to speak. I don't know if he makes it, but I think he's improved his stock with the way he's performed in training camp and these two preseason games. Marcus Davenport, I don't know. We haven't seen much from him in the game so far. He hadn't jumped out. No. I'm not ready to sound any sort of alarm because I saw enough of him when he was healthy last year to think he's got the tools to be a good player. But you'd like to see him have some impact in some games to solidify that impression. So we'll see where he goes from here. Been quiet so far, but I wouldn't be discouraged by that just yet.
I also was impressed with Wes Horton the other night, coming in, the veteran. Thought he played pretty well. I'd be interested to see if he can carry that over, again, especially if he's playing against first team. What are your thoughts on that defensive end position?
I think with Davenport, you want to see some variety in his moves. You know, he doesn't seem to have a lot of counters for what offensive linemen given. He seems to go, it's either bull rush or try to get around the edge really quickly. And then if that doesn't happen, he doesn't really have a second move. So I think, you know, he's got to find that. He's got to get better at using his hands. Hendrickson has looked really good. You know, again, his youth is against him. He's going to have to battle, but it feels like the coaching staff is going to give him every opportunity to make them make the decision. You know, like they're going to have to be forced to cut him is the way it feels. The defensive line as a whole has not impressed. It was better against the Chargers. But it hasn't been. You haven't seen anything that pop, like let's say nothing has popped out from the screen with the defensive line. So I think that you know, obviously the absence of your elite pass rusher and Cam Jordan on the end certainly has an impact, and then missing Sheldon Rankins certainly has an impact. But these guys are given an opportunity, and somebody needs to make a play. And you want to see some penetration this week against the Jets, who are missing people on their offensive line, who do have injuries there. So this is an opportunity to go after the quarterback, create some opportunities for yourself as a player trying to make the team and establish something. If you can't do it against this team, you know, week 4 is not really going to matter.
Anzalone injured again. Hopefully he'll be back for the start of the regular season. Caden Ellis had the mic helmet on, calling the signals. I mean, looked pretty good for his first opportunity really in that mix. But your thoughts on Ellis, how he's played thus far? I mean, a 7th round pick, not much was expected of him, but obviously the coaching staff likes him a lot.
Yeah, I think he's going to make the team. He's very smart, very athletic for a linebacker, very versatile, excellent special teams player, which is going to be huge for any backup linebacker. You know, NFL pedigree. You know, his dad, Luther Ellis, was a good player. Obviously, has prepared his son to be an NFL player. I just think, you know, he doesn't look like a 7th round pick. If he were a 2nd round pick and he had this camp, you would have said, well, that's about what I would expect for a second-round pick. I really think he has outperformed what you would expect from a seventh-round pick. Not much proven depth at linebacker after Craig Robertson.
Right.
And so I think there's a very good chance that Luther Ellis makes the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I think he does too. I mean, you've seen even in practices they continue to put him on the field. There are nickel packages.
Yes.
They continue to. When you can run sideline to sideline.
They needed to have the athletic player.
When you
like
have a
Anzalone.
guy like that who can just move and make instinctual plays, I think that you have to keep those kind of athletes around. He can be developed. He's low cost, and at the very least, like I say, if you're going to make a mistake, make it going fast.
Yeah.
And that's what he'll do. So I think he makes the team. I think he's played well enough so far. And the amount of trust when you see coaching staffs, especially ones like with Sean Payton and Dennis Allen, guys who have done this enough, when they start putting confidence in young players, that means they really trust them.
Rookie or newcomer that you think will make this team?
Well, I think Ellis would be the top on that list.
Be the top guy?
I think he would be number one on that list, yeah.
Yeah, I think he'd be the top guy on the list. I mean, I think all of the draft choices would have made it if Alize Mack hadn't gotten hurt, so he's kind of in limbo. Because
he practiced this week. I'm wondering if ultimately he doesn't end up on IR, which would have been optimum. But we'll see one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, and Emmanuel Butler would be in that mix as well. Deontay Harris obviously is a dangerous return man. I just don't see how he gets enough snaps on Sunday to justify making the roster, but he clearly knows how to return kicks.
That's going to be interesting because you can cut Marcus Sherrills and only have to absorb $90,000 of dead money, which is really nothing in the NFL. And, I think Harris has proven that he can return kicks on the NFL level. I'm wondering, again, since Marcus Sherrills has not had a chance to be on the field, if ultimately he's not a guy that goes on IR, and if ultimately Harris is injured and within the allotted time that he can come off of IR, they go in that direction. Again, teams are always looking for guys that can return kicks. And I think if you put Harris out there, someone's going to pick him up.
Well, they are, but the problem is there are so few kickoff returns nowadays with the rule changes. You're talking about a guy being active on Sunday to return punts.
Right.
I mean, you got to be elite to justify that because I don't see him getting any snaps at wide receiver.
No,
so, as good as he is, and as much as you would hate to lose him as a potential prospect, I just don't
Maybe
see
6 touches.
Right.
Maybe 6 touches.
Yeah, but Sherrill's the same way,
Devin
right?
Hester, maybe you make room for him, but I just don't see how he gets enough playing time on Sunday to justify a roster spot.
Right. Well, you won't see Chris Banjo back there playing safety if you don't have to, and all he's doing is special teams. If Sherrill's on this team, all he's going to do is return kicks, even though he's in the secondary. I surely wouldn't want to march him out there and put him in Eli Apple's corner position. So it's kind of the same stuff, same
Yeah,
deal.
but Chris Banjo, and you can throw Justin Hardy in that group too, and Craig Robertson. Those guys play on every
they're
team.
on coverage teams,
They play a lot more snaps than just returning punts. And if you have a good punter with a lot of hang time who kicks it out of bounds, they take him out of the game, and he's not playing at all.
Your thoughts on Harris?
He reminds me a lot of Trendon Holiday. That similar build, very small but very shifty, able to get to the outside quickly, stop on a dime, keep going. That track kind of player. He's very good. He is very good. But like you said, the kicking game is going to continue to get minimized in the NFL. The NFL is phasing out kick returns of all types, and it's just teams are getting smarter. They don't want that to be the thing that impacts the game. So if he can't contribute in multiple areas, then it's going to be very hard to keep him.
Shifting gears to LSU, they are 6th in the Associated Press preseason poll. A lot is expected of this Tiger team, especially with the schedule. And a lot, I mentioned this today, a lot is really on the shoulders of this particular team this year, not just, again, to make an opportunity to get to the Final Four, maybe win the SEC, but you've got that 2020 class where I think 15 of the 23 commitments are from out of state. And if this season is not a championship season or a season where, again, you don't reach the expectations, all of a sudden those guys that were gung-ho about being a Tiger, you could see them possibly defecting to other schools. So there's a lot riding on this season for Coach Ed Ogeron. With that said, what are your thoughts on the Tigers going into this season?
Well, I think there is good reason to think they will be better than last year. And last year they went 10-3, played in the New Year's Six Bowl. So that tells you that they're on the edge of possibly the CFP. I don't know if they're going to make it, but I think Joe Burrow will be more comfortable in the offense. I think we saw that late last year. I think he'll continue to get more comfortable. I think the offense will be more difficult to defend because of Joe Brady and the passing concepts. I think the way that they are going to play hurry up and get the ball out quickly will mitigate the sack issues they had last year. I think there's more depth at running back. I think Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase will upgrade the receiving core. So I think there's a lot of improvement around the offense. The big question on offense is the offensive line. They either have an NFL caliber guy or a question mark in most of those spots. I think on balance, they'll be a good line. If they're a great line, then they become a national championship contender. I'm not sure they're there yet. Defense, they have to get luckier with health compared to last year. They had all those injuries on the defensive line. They lost Chase on in the opener. The secondary, I think, is terrific. The depth back there, maybe not as good as you would like, but those first 5 or 6 guys are outstanding. I think Michael Divinity is coming on strong with him and Chase on at linebacker. They have everything you need. They just have to, find a way to win those big games. They can go to Tuscaloosa and lose and still be in the playoff. They got to go to Texas and win, and they got to win probably the rest of the SEC, which is not easy. But I think they have an opportunity to be potentially one of those 4 teams. They really have everything you need.
Give us your breakdown.
The indicators are going to be a couple of things to me. Number one is the line play. To beat the Alabama or a Clemson or an Ohio State, you have to be dominant on both sides of the line. And LSU has not been that the last few years. I mean, when was the last time an LSU D lineman went in the first round? It's been a while.
Yes.
Offensive line, Cushenberry has to be better. There's been that inconsistency there. Joe Burrow has to get over 3,000 yards. It has to happen. Because, again, you look at the college football landscape, 4,000 yards Trevor Lawrence, Tua, 4,000 yards. Go to Ohio State, they've had 4,000, 3,000-yard passers each of the last 5-6 years. Burrow has to be in that category. He has to be 3,000 yards. He has to be near 20 touchdowns. He's got to be that kind of threat. I think with the running game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a very good, solid starter. But John Emery's going to have to make some big plays. Even if he's only getting 7 to 10 carries a game, a couple of those need to be 20-yard runs because he's the explosive guy. He's the one that the Leonard Fournettes are sharing video of. Jamal Adams, they're sharing Emery video. They're not sharing Clyde Edwards-Helaire video. So that has to happen. The tight ends, you've got 2 6'7" tight ends on the outside for Joe Burrow. Those are great targets to have. We saw the last 2 years, they wasted the tight end position with Foster Moreau. He should have been, an integral part, but because the line struggles, they weren't able to do that. And against Alabama, again, if you're going to beat them, you've got to make their linebackers work. Tight ends do that. So those are the things you want to see for LSU defensively. They've got to be able to get to the quarterback. Turnovers, I think, won't be a problem again with this linebacking core and with that secondary. I mean, to have Christian Fulton on one side, who will definitely be a first-round pick and maybe the Thorpe Award winner, and on the other side, you've got Derek Stingley, who people, again, I've heard people say that if this were basketball, he's a one-and-done type performer. Amazing. So just that, and then to have Grant Delpit, who will go down as one of the great LSU safeties of all time, they just have, that ability to defend the pass that well will be so good for the line, but they've just got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and really, when you look at them, no weakness on all 3 levels of the defense.
No.
That's the key going forward here. Offense line, you can say that, again, there's some weaknesses there, and rightly so based on what we saw last year. You're hoping that, again, another year in the weight room, another year of experience they've had, that will go a long way in helping them. But I'm really curious to see what the offense is going to look like, because a lot of people think it's going to be this wide open run and gun type offense. I think they're going to steal some concepts from the Saints, getting the ball out quickly, short patterns, getting the running backs involved in it. Again, allowing receivers to catch the ball and run. But I don't know if we're going to see an all-out run and shoot type offense for the LSU Tigers. What have you heard? What are your thoughts going into in terms of how the offense will change this year to what we've seen previously?
Yeah, they keep saying they want a 50-50 run-pass balance, and they have the depth at running back to run the ball well. So, one, it's not going to be Air Orgeron, first of all.
Right.
And so I think there may be a misconception that they're just going to, throw it all over the place.
Right.
The scheme, I believe, is going to be utilize all of the eligible receivers, move them around so Burrow can identify the best matchup and go to that matchup. So you're going to have, they can run any play out of any formation. You're going to have guys in motion, and you're going to hurry up and limit the substitutions from the defense so Burrow can pick out the optimum matchup. And I think they have enough skilled players at running back and wide receiver that he's always going to be able to find a favorable matchup, at least until they play Alabama. And so I think it's going to be about efficiency and pace more than gaudy yards in the passing game or going deep all the time. But, Burrow made excellent decisions last year.
Yes.
And I think he'll thrive in that with that opportunity to pick out the best matchup. So I think efficiency is going to be the key word with this offense.
Dave, what can you add?
Yeah, turnovers. LSU did a great job 2 years ago of limiting their turnovers. When they got into trouble last season, they had a flourish of turnovers. They started giving the ball away in bunches. I think this year, you look at that defense, what LSU wants to do is have that defense give them shorter fields and then use that tempo to keep scoring points. When Joe Burrow was talking about we're going to score 40, 50, 60 points, it's not going to be on 80-yard marches. They want that field to be 50, 60 yards so that they can get those plays. You do have in Justin Jefferson out on the outside a kid who could be special. He's got that Odell Beckham Jr., Reuben Randall, those kind of abilities on the outside. So just having that threat, having those linebackers, and again, giving Joe Burrow the run-pass option instead of him scrambling for his life and rushing for yards that way. To know that he has multiple receivers at different levels, I think that goes a long way. And then the fact that Burrow has more confidence than we've seen in an LSU quarterback since Zach Mettenberger, but I think Burrow is a better leader and a better passer than Mettenberger was. So I think that there's still such a tremendous amount of growth that's possible for Burrow this year.
There's also this thought process out there that Burrow is going to be a runner. Last year he didn't run a lot because Miles Brennan was hurt. Miles Brennan has, been injury-free for the most part during the offseason. He's put weight on, which is something he needed to do. But if Burrow means this much to the offense, do you expose him running the football like maybe we saw was against A&M, where he ran the ball a ridiculous amount of times?
Yeah, the A&M game, of course, they ran like 1,000 plays because the game went on all night. But they did that in part because it was working, and so they stuck with it. But late in the season, they did use the RPO a little more often. And I think they're going to spot it in there. And you see the Saints do it with Taysom Hill. They run the RPO as a change of pace. And because in certain circumstances, it gives them the right matchup and against the defense. So they're going to spot it in there, I think. And maybe the way it was utilized late last season by Steve Ensminger. And let's not forget, Ensminger's still the coordinator.
Sure.
We all talk about Brady, but Ensminger's the coordinator. Brady's the passing game coordinator. So I think he's going to do it to mix it in there. But I don't think they're going to expose him to an inordinate number of hits. Why would they?
Right. Your thoughts?
There still isn't enough on Miles Brennan to make you think that he can step in and be the starter. I mean, so you don't want to put him in a position. He's been there. This is his third year, and he just hasn't, I don't think, made that leap to where you feel fully confident that he should start some games or that he's going to win big games for you, especially on the road if Burrow were to go down. So you'll give him those opportunities to make that decision, but I think it'll be very matchup heavy. When you're not going to see it against when you see full packages. It'll be more when he can get against smaller defenders on the outside and use his body and get to the edge.
And Cade York is an unknown right now, right? I mean, we're hearing great things about him, but he's never been at Tiger Stadium. He's never had to play against the University of Alabama. He's never been in a big game like that. So you could talk about the machismo and and the great leg. But I mean, kicking is between the ears, and we won't know what type of kicker he is till you see him out there really kicking for real.
Yeah, Cole Tracy raised the bar so high that it's going to be difficult for Cade York or anybody to do better than he did. It'll be a challenge just to match what he did last year. I've heard great things from Baton Rouge. People close to the program say they're not worried. They think he's going to be a stud. And he may well be, but you're right. With a place kicker, you don't know. So much of it is between the ears. And even if he has a nice first game, you know, Cole Tracy did it last year on national TV against Miami.
Right.
Okay, Georgia Southern in Tiger Stadium maybe isn't quite the same. When they go to Austin for that second game, if he has to hit some challenging and pressure field goals in that game, I think we'll start to learn about him. But, you know, they are confident in him at this point.
Right. But it's still a question mark, right?
Oh, yeah. But if you're LSU, you're hoping that you're not in position to kick threes as much as you were the last couple seasons. I mean, it's been they had so many struggles the last 2 years in the red zone and ended up walking away with three way too often that the pressure was on Cole Tracy, and you were fortunate that he was just that guy. The best case scenario, of course, for any team is to not be in that position when you get in the red zone. And I think they will be more effective in the red zone this year.
Just real quick, let's remember, Cole Tracy was a graduate transfer. This is a true freshman.
Yes, no doubt. Coming straight out of high school, no doubt. Guys, the offseason theme at Tulane all season long is taking the next step. Back-to-back bowl wins. The defense is thought to be among the best, if not the best in the conference. Some are saying that defensive line could be among the best in the nation. But again, high expectations for this Tulane program with Willie Fritz in year 2. What are your thoughts, David?
I think they could win their division. I think that's possible. I don't know if they're good enough to win the conference this season, but I do think with that defense, the running game that they have, and if Justin McMillan can continue the progress that he showed over those last 3 to 4 games, then they should be a team that wins. I think they can be an 8-win team in the regular season. That's where, I mean, you know, they've had a legitimate chance of winning 9 last season. So I think, you know, the top of that conference is difficult, but the rest of their division is very winnable. It's just the you know, when you go up against the elite in the AAC, that's where they're going to struggle.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
Well, I think in one sense it's a lot like LSU on a smaller scale because you have a new offensive coordinator coming in, and Will Hall, coming from Memphis, a lot of the same concepts that Joe Brady believes in. And so utilizing fullbacks and tight ends and running backs out of the backfield and keeping the defense off balance. And I think Justin McMillan, that's when the season turned last year, was when they put him in the starting lineup and made that run after the 2-5 start. So I think that could be an excellent marriage right there with the new offense that's going to allow McMillan to make more plays passing the ball. And so I think their offense could be much harder to defend. The defense should be really, really good, which is important. But a couple of things to remember that are just remarkable that don't necessarily apply to this team, but still, you know, no Tulane coach has won back-to-back bowl games in school history. Because most of them that win a bowl game leave. They use that to get a better job.
There's no doubt about that.
Larry Smith did it, and you know, others did it. So that's one thing. This is only the 5th team in Tulane history entering the season after a bowl win. So I mean, it's just for Tulane to be looking at trying to go to a bowl for a second straight year and win a second straight bowl is historic stuff.
Right.
But they're capable of doing
Absolutely.
it. So I think there's every reason to be excited about Tulane because I think they have a chance to be better, maybe win 7, 8 games and compete for the division title, but at the very least get bowl eligible and maybe change some of those numbers.
And they're very good at key positions. As I mentioned, the defense, very, very good defense. Running back, they are stacked. They're
Four
like
deep.
4 deep, and guys that can play at places other than Tulane. Okay, and then again, not a lot of depth at the wide receiver position, but they're starters. You would think again those are comparable starters what you'd see in a Division I program, and you got a returning quarterback, so you feel pretty good about where they are. And look, Willie Fritz has won everywhere he's been, and he's had this program now for a while, and he's starting to recruit the type of athletes he wants to recruit. It'll be interesting to see again if they can take the next step. Look, I'll tell you what, everybody I talk to that is a Tulane fan really believes this is the year they take that next step.
And the first thing Willie Fritz talked about at Media Day that we haven't talked about yet, which is really important, is this is the most depth they've had, not only since he's been at Tulane. He says the most depth maybe he's ever had anywhere he's been. And that's important because, fatigue can kick in if you don't have depth on the lines.
Yes.
We talked about the running backs. They have so much depth there. And then, of course, injuries are going to happen at some point. So I think they are far better positioned to go 2 and 3 deep into their roster when they have to. And that can make a big difference in 1 or 2 games, which could make the difference between going to a bowl and not.
Biggest question mark for Tulane, same question mark for LSU, offensive line.
Yes.
They both programs will go as far as their offensive lines take them.
And I think the one thing, too, for Tulane that is an advantage is they have experience because they did not have the luxury of redshirting these guys.
True.
They had to play guys when Willie Fritz got there. Like you said, there's only 3 guys left remaining from the class that got there before he did because they just didn't have that luxury. Every year, the freshmen were playing. So, yeah, that line has to come together. But I think the fact that they lost those close games last season, and now to come into this position with that experience and to have the defense that you have and the running game, those are the ways you win close games when you're a smaller school.
Yeah. Guys, we got about 3 minutes left. Want to get this in. Pelicans projected to have the 5th toughest schedule in the league, but yet they're on television, 30 nationally televised games, but none in the final 17. David, I'll start with you. Your thoughts, about a minute for each one of you guys, if you don't mind.
Yeah, clearly this is the Zion Williamson effect. They want to check him out early, and if they think the Pelicans are going to fade, you get those TV games out of the way first. You can always flex back if the Pelicans are in contention late. But this is based on the astronomical numbers that Zion did last year for ESPN, for TNT, for CBS at Duke.
Right. Your thoughts, Les?
Yeah, absolutely. Zion Williamson is the reason, and there's a reason why it's front-loaded, because you don't know if this team's going to be in playoff contention, though they certainly could be.
I think they will be.
I think about 10 of those games are on NBA TV, so they're not necessarily reaching the audience each time, but nonetheless, it's a significant number of games. More so than the TV, I think is the schedule seems to be front-loaded.
Yes.
With really good teams.
Right. 15 of the last 20 against teams that did make the playoffs last year, right?
And 2 against the Lakers.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really 17 teams that you're talking about playoff quality teams.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think we're going to learn about this team early on. Just let's see how quickly they gel, and that'll give us an idea whether those games later in the season are going to have a lot of meaning, because there's so many new faces there, but I just think that the balance of the young guys and the older guys and the flexibility with the lineup that Alvin Gentry has is fascinating. And I just think, even if you're not in New Orleans, beyond Zion, I think basketball fans want to see how this collection comes together, and that's why I think they will be fun to watch and draw a good audience, not only for Zion, primarily for Zion, but also because of the way they've put together this roster.
No doubt. One more time, Les, tell the folks about the article you have coming up, where folks can check out all of your great articles, and then Dave will go to you and tell us a little about the radio show as well.
Thanks. SaturdayDownSouth.com for LSU stuff, The Advocate. Failed to mention the New Iberia paper earlier, Saints coverage there, and of course CrescentCitySports.com. My mini book on the demise of the baby cakes will post probably late on the day, Labor Day. Season ends that day in Oklahoma City.
And that'll be in what publication?
On CrescentCitySports.com.
CrescentCitySports.com. Dave, radio show?
Yeah, a lot going on at the radio show. Tomorrow we do our big fantasy football segment that we do every Wednesday. We're focusing on wide receivers this week, so that's trying to give that edge to folks. We have guests coming in later this week talking about giving us some previews on the Tampa Bay Bucks. We're going to be talking about the Big Three. So a lot of things going on there. Folks can check my website, hitpwithdg.com. All my TV appearances, the number I've done here and everywhere else, and my articles are all there. And of course, you can listen to the podcast on the iHeart app.
There you go, and it's 8 to 10 a.m. weekdays on Sports 1280. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also on Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 o'clock every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2 on the iHeart Radio app. That is noon to 2 weekdays. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. Also the iHeart Radio app, as mentioned. Also, you can check out all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel as well, Inside New Orleans Sports. Special thanks to our guests tonight, Les East and also David Grubb. Also to the WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dodson, Alex Chacon, Naila Jones, and my director, William Mill. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.